Hey, what's up, guys? It's Day here. We are back from the 5-decade hiatus of not posting, and we are back to make another tier list. This is exciting one. It's 5.1, boys. This is the new season, new year. Everything's changed. Everything's new. Everything needs to be re-ranked, and I think I will be the one to guide us through, to be honest. And we'll start with Ogni. Dude's pretty good. He's on the border between A and A plus, I would say. We'll put him in A. We'll just keep him as the center of balance for now. He procs Mage's Blessing with every one of his abilities well. He's got 3 procs on his ult, a proc on his 2, a proc on his 3, a proc on his 1. Of course, that's like pretty strong right there. He does well with, it's Ogni. I don't think I should be over-explaining, it's just Ogni. He's the pinnacle of balance, most would call. And I think with this new map, I think I'll agree with that. Amazenkob, you see, back in the day, he was like, whew, he was so high, he was like everywhere. He was better than Uller in most people's opinions. Now, kind of not, because of the the fact that he is a 1v1 god, and now it's a 2v2. That sucks for him, because his hives, which were his best 1v1 part, got nerfed. That hurt. Not to mention the fact that now that there's 2 gods, there's twice as likely that someone's going to scope out your hive and just kill it. Support should be, if they're doing things correctly, they should just be between waves, scouting out hives and just killing them. So you will rarely have a hive up for trades. Not to mention the fact that supports are body blocking basics, supports have CC, and CC, like any sort of pull that a god might have, would put AMC out of position, and this would be devastating. This same idea goes for Apwash, but on a larger scale due to the fact that he is not a hunter and therefore cannot crit. Crit is pretty strong right now. AMC doesn't make too much use of it. But anyway, Apwash, he's got damage and nothing else. In a burst meta, you'd think he'd be better with Warlock Sash. But in a burst meta, he's also worse because everything can burst him more. And that's kind of painful for a Mage with no escape and little to no like CC. Like, he's got a slow on his 1, and if you get gem, you got that, but now you have gem, which means you have to build into it, and it's a pretty expensive item, so it takes some time. So relatively unsafe until that point. Amaterasu. She is a warrior that plays the warrior role, except she loses lane always, because that's what Amaterasu does best, except for the fact that it doesn't matter if you lose lane, because after the 15-minute mark or so, you'll just be level 20 anyway, basically. That's an exaggeration, but you'll have a lot of farm. And since towers, tier 1s, although you're going to lose your tier 1 as Amaterasu early in the solo lane, it doesn't matter because you can get theirs pretty quickly. Not to mention that her team fight is one of the best for any warrior. Her auras are always going to be highly valued, and her movement speed aura, especially in the current map, make her rotations more potent, and that's pretty important. Also, we've seen her do decent in the support role, and I can see it. Her level 1 clear is aight. Her level 1 pressure, on the other hand, pressure and clear being 2 different things, is pretty good as well, with passive aura and her mirror or your 1, depending on what you get. Yeah, all around she's pretty good in whatever role she is picked up in. I'd say A+. On her, he is a Gar Hunter that doesn't scale all. I mean, he scales decently off crit. Doesn't have the attack speed that some other gods would, which makes it less than optimal. But he scales decently well enough. Transcendence got buffed, so he can make more use out of that. The thing that I like a lot is his 75-second ultimate, which is basically a free beads. That's a 75-second beads. Not to mention that early game, that any boxing match in a 2v2 through 1v1 scenario where you use your ult, you just win because they can't CC you. You're just pumping out consistent damage as long as you're hitting that. It's just a lot of damage early game and a lot of burst early game, and his early pressure is what makes him a monster. And since early pressure, especially in dual lane, is really important, it makes him a strong candidate. Not to mention that jungle fights and like his buff contest is really strong because the jungle has walls everywhere, and impaled and then pillared and basic like 3 times and ulted, you're gone. You're just not even, no matter what character you could be playing um, Geb and you can have like, you can be level 20 Geb and you can be level 7 and it still strikes you, dude. I mean, sure, it's a little bit of an exaggeration, but still, I mean, you get the point. His burst is high, and especially early game, that's pretty potent, and it'll be felt. Anubis, everyone's going freaking out about this dude. He's everywhere on tier list. He's down here, he's up here, he's everywhere. I'm gonna be this guy and put him right in A tier. I don't know. There were bugs. I hear there were bugs on PTS. Um, on live client, it's Anubis still. The lifesteal items are great. Anubis has more sustain, but at the same time, there's also something known as Divine Ruin, which got buffed recently for some reason, and it makes his sustain and therefore his survivability kind of back to where it was, which was no mobility. I will rate him pretty high because I want to see where this goes. I kind of want to see if Anubis like has any chance in the meta. His level 1 clear is amazing. His kill potential level 3, 5, 3 to 5ish is amazing. But his issue has always been like, if the assassin decided, I don't like that you're like 2 steps out of tower, I'm gonna kill you. It happened, but now his lifesteal items are pretty strong, and before anti-heal, before the opponent can build into anti-heal, you're pretty strong. It's just that once you build into anti-heal, how well will you fare? That's the question that we need to answer. Next up is Ao Kwang. I like him in this current meta. I think that because you can farm so efficiently in the jungle now, uh, the fact that his weak lane clear is a thing doesn't even matter. Because his jungle clear, I mean, although not being the best early game, is not bad. It's not bad. You can get away with getting your 2 and just like shredding the camps and taking it. And not to mention, I love Doom Orb on this god. I love Doom Orb in the jungle for mages. In the mid lane, I think it's trash. I think it shouldn't be built. But in the jungle, it gives you so much rotational, like between buffs, like from one buff to another. It's so great. I love it. I think it's great. But I have seen no Doom Orbs besides the ones that I build on Ao Kwang. I think it works great, and I think that because of this, I think people are undermining the fact that he also scales well off these new items, like all these lifesteal items. Sure, he doesn't get the Typhon's Fangs boost, but it's still like coolio, dude. Like you got 8 lifesteal items, 3 rings, like so many things you can try out on Ao Kwang now. I like going Soul Reaver Ethereal. You get like 20% true damage against tanks. That's like basically halfway to your execute threshold. It's like cool, dog. So you need like 40% more or something. Wait, 60. I think it's 30%, right? Okay, so you need a 50% more, but not including the ability damage that you already had to do to get that 20%. You know, I think Ao Kwang's strong. I think this is a bit underrated in the current meta, and so forth. God that's not underrated is Aphrodite. I think she's trash. Yeah, the thing with Afro is where you're gonna put her mid. She's gonna get demolished. Her early clear is not the best. Where you gonna put her solo? She's gonna get out pressured by any warrior. Even Guardians could pressure her out. Where are you gonna put her support? That's like the most likely, but even still, you just pick up a cursed donk, upgrade that baby, and boom, you take 30% more damage, and anyone you're trying to help out takes 30% more damage. It's brutal. You take 30% more damage. That's a lot of damage. And I think Curse Donk needs to be taken into consideration against most of these healers, not to mention the Divine Rune buffs, all that jazz. And Afro being a mage, she doesn't do well in a burst meta. She does better in like a poke meta or like a damage over time meta with the Guardian meta, for example, where it's not burst, but it's like damage until you die. Like you get 10% taken every like second, and over 10 seconds you're gone. Afro does good in that, but this is like you live for 2 seconds or you're gone. So there's always that. Apollo, A tier god in my opinion. I think that the global ultimate is really nice. Transcendence helps him out there, giving him mana. He's good with crit. All these factors that you would take into consideration when it comes to Apollo. However, his early clear kind of struggles just a tad bit. So you'd need a high clear guardian. I mean, that would make sense. High clear guardian with Apollo has always been a thing. His trading potential is really nice. because of just the way he's built with his kit. His, what's it, 2 being the mez that increases his protections, whatever. His attack speed steroid on his passive, all that good stuff. And his ability to scale well with crit. Just all that is great, but early pressure is so important in dueling, especially, that I don't see him being much higher. Arachne. I don't know what to do with you. You're somewhere. I I don't I don't know where to put her, to be honest. She's got clear for jungle. Um what else does she have? She's got damage. Um but like at this point, why would you pick her over Baka? Like, right? Why would you ever do that? Uh I really don't know where she belongs. I'll just put her in A minus and say she's bad unless used by the correct people. There we go. That's my take on Arachne. Ares. Ares is interesting. I don't like playing Ares. I'm a supporty support. I'm not an aggressive support. I mean, I can play aggressively, but I don't like the aggressive style as much as I like my Kepris, my Gebs, you know, my Ganesh. I mean, Ganesh is a little bit more aggressive, but I like those gods. I like those gods more than I like the Ares. Be all up in your grill, trying to get them kills. Ares is cool and interesting in this meta because he has no lane clear. His lane clear is literally abysmal. But he does have lane pressure because of his damage, and if you don't want to get shackled early as a hunter, if you get shackled by Ares, you're kind of like half health. You're like, oh, okay, that's fine. That's more than I would do in like a year. But Ares has a lot of lane pressure, but not a lot of lane clear, so that means that you have to hit those shackles to have a presence in lane. Otherwise, you're not, because you're not gonna outclear most any guardian. I mean, you can maybe outclear like a Kumba or like a Gab or Fafnir maybe if you have a high clear hunter, but you're not gonna outclear most guardians as Ares. But what you are gonna do is outdamage them, and that's important to like maybe push out the opponents with a high clear hunter. You might be able to do some fun stuff. I think he's an A tier god. He needs some situational like team around him that some of these other gods here don't. But if he does, he excels more than these gods do if they have the correct situations pulled up for them. And that's why I'm gonna put him in A tier. Artemis. Intriguing god. Her early clear sucks major cock, like actually trash. Uh, she crits a lot. I actually don't know where to put her because she crits a lot, but her early clear sucks. She's got so much attack speed, like 75% on her too. Stupid. I don't know why it's that high, but like I said, her early clear sucks, and it's so important for that dueling to either get pressure or get clear, and she has neither. I'm gonna put her in A tier. I think that's where she belongs, despite her really good scaling of crit. I think she's an A tier god that deserves an A tier spot. She's the high end of A tier for sure, I think. Not as high as on her, in my opinion. But she has a high end of A tier, and she can do her thing. She can do it really well in this meta. But, the issue is always going to be that clear. And until if she ever gets that buff, which makes her clear broken, she's going to be pretty high up. Artio. Artio is a solo laner and or a support, but she's played more as a solo laner. As a solo laner, Mage's Blessing on her is stupid. Like, you just proc it twice, level 1, you're like, alright, wave's already cleared. What are you doing? You hit the wave twice? You've done 2 damage to the wave? Cool. I've already cleared the next wave. I don't know what you're doing, dog. Yeah, Artio is strong, especially with Mage's Blessing. I think that she's just very capable of bullying out solo laners right now, and, being able to heal, being able to do damage, just being able to do it all. I think she's great for trades. I think that's why she's an S tier. She brings a lot to a team fight, mainly CC. That cripple is still there, and more mobile gods are going to be prevalent because of the larger map, and thus more mobility means that the cripple affects you more, and that's just a downward spiral for you if you're playing god that relies on mobility. Next up is Athena, who has mobility, but it's through a global ultimate, which makes her really strong. Athena is able to get from point A to point B in, I think it's 5 seconds channeling. Um, and that's strong because she can be anywhere at any time, and that puts pressure. That's basically free pressure on all lanes. And she's really good at flex rolling. She can be multiple roles. She can be solo, although less now that her passive doesn't proc magical abilities like it used to. Rip Vamstrat Athena. But jungle and support are still very viable options for her in my opinion. I think she's really strong there, especially in the support role. I love support Athena. I think it's great. She doesn't have the best lane clear, but that doesn't matter because no one's about to mess with the level 5 Athena. She can be anywhere at any time, and I think that that's really strong. That just gets, because she can get her dual lane ahead, and then she can get her mid lane ahead, and then she can get her uh, solo lane ahead, all while just helping her dual lane be even more ahead. It's super strong. Not to mention, 2 second taunt always going to be a factor, and if you don't acknowledge it, you're dead. Wheelish, on the other hand, I don't know. I think her Suku is cool for rotating from point A to point B. That's nice, I guess, but you're going to use a lot of mana, and early game mana seems to be an issue. I don't know. Her burst, she's always going to be that early game niche assassin. I mean, she does counter some of the like leap assassins that there seems to be more. Bastet, she counters the forward and backward. Um, Whom's is the other one? Sercat, she can do good nasty things to her. Hunbats, he's got a leap too. He can do things. Also, she can avoid the big slammy slam by flipping over him. It's pretty nice for her on that end. She's got some good matchups, and I think she has a chance. It's just that once you get to that late game, you're not doing as much. You want to be at that point. You're just like more of an ult machine, not an ult bot. You do damage still, especially because pen from your assassin's blessing throughout the game will be more potent. But in my opinion, some assassins just do a little bit more early game and transition better because of it. But hey, I think Awilish has a chance to be high up in this tier list. Bacchus is similar to Ares in that sense, except I like playing Bacchus more than Ares. But that's besides the point. I mean, Bacchus and Ares are really similar in their playstyle, where you have to get that lane pressure. But unlike Ares, I think Bacchus doesn't scale off auras one, so I think he's less good in that sense. He might. I mean, I think I'll put him there because he's got that leap, but then what? Like, he can stun some people if they don't like move out of it, or if they don't CC him out of it, and you can from there what? Once you flop in and do your combo, what do then? Like, you don't have anything there. I mean, sure, most Guardians, once you dump your kit, you don't have anything. But Bacchus, you're obliged to dump your kit once you leap in. Ares, he can shackle you, but then he doesn't have to pop his 3. You don't have to do that. You can. It'll be a lot of damage, but you don't have to. You don't have to pop your ult after you shackle. In fact, you could probably wait until your shackle cooldown reset, then ult, so then you can get an easy shackle after that. Bacchus, once you leap in, you have to, in a team fight, once you leap in, you either completely dump your kit, or you just leap in and walk away. Neither is too, like, good for Bacchus, but in the same time, it is a burst meta where you can get away with that more. I just think his laning phase is weaker than Ares's, because early game he's not going to have as much damage as Ares is because of the shackles. Shackles are stupid, by the way. And like I said before, he doesn't scale out as well as off of auras as Ares does, because he's going to be leaping into the enemy team, so his team is not going to be affected by auras as much. But hey, that's just my 2 cents. Bakasur, I think he's coming back. I think he's coming back. He's probably not because I'm dumb, but if he does, it'll be hilarious, because the new jungle, if you clear it quickly, you can farm so efficiently off of it. It's so ridiculous. Baka, for example, you can have total control over mid harpies, over your harpies, over their harpies, over your speed buff, over everything. If you have buff control as Baka, you've won, because there's so much farm to just have. Especially since everything respawns quickly, so if you can get timers on the opponents quickly, you can ball out, to be honest. because once you eat minion, you're gonna clear faster after that. So Baka, in my opinion, is strong right now. I think that he is definitely up and coming. He's gonna be one of those gods that I feel like people sleep on throughout the season, and it's just gonna show up one time, and everyone's gonna play him. I think that he has potential in solo, but I think the jungle potential is right there. It's ridiculous, the amount of farm he can get. Especially the passive helps him, just because he's always eating now. Like, sure you rely on minions, but you're always eating because they're on such low respawns, so you can always have the passive up just to rotate to buffs. His farm game is on point. We'll have to see how his other part of the game will be. Sure, he still lacks CC, and I think that'll be a pullback. But another god that lacks CC but is also really strong, Bastet. Um, the thing about Bastet is that she's a high burst early game assassin, which basically just drops your kit, kills you early game, and you have nothing to do about it. You're a mid laner. Good luck to you, my dude. You're gonna get jumped on. You're gonna get pounced, and then what's it called? Razor whip into what's the other ability called? Like cat claw or something. Yeah, you just get those three abilities on. You're like, oh, I lived on like 2 health. Nah, she dropped her cats, and now you're dead. It's just unfortunate that you got to deal with that as a mage. But hey, Bastet, because of that, Bastet's shining. I think that who was it? Scream's performance on Bastet was phenomenal, and I think just through that, you can see that Bastet has always had potential, but now more than ever, I think she's gonna see to the full potential. And I'm kind of interested to see where she goes. I feel like I might be rating her high, putting her in S minus, but still, we'll try. We'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see what comes through with the dude. Bellona, ooh, she got kind of oofed when Deathstole forgot to become an item, and now she has no sustain. Well, I mean, she's got Warrior's Blessing, but Deathstole, dude, Deathstole was broken on her, and now she's got what? Hunter's Blessing? I mean, nice little clear, increased clear, but I don't know. I don't think she's gonna be the same. I think she'll be an A tier god. Actually, we'll put her in A plus because that disarm, you cannot underrate the disarm, especially in a meta where hunters are like trying to get them crits out. If you disarm them, their DPS drops drastically. Because now they're not critting, then they're just not basic attacking. That's just 2 seconds of not basic attacking. It's kind of heat. You just have to get that hunter to not basic attack for 2 seconds, and if you have a hunter who's basic attacking for 2 seconds with crit, you're doing tons more DPS than the enemy team, and you just kind of basically win that fight off that. It's kind of interesting in that sense. But her laning phase is a little bit weaker than before, that's for sure. It's just that her late game, it's pretty strong in my opinion. Cabrakan, Cabrakan's on another plane after the Season 5. Like, he used to be the best of the best. He used to rush people down and shit. But now he's kind of like, does he rush people down, or does he get blown up before he gets there? It's like, it's kind of confusing now, because like, on the one hand, you'd say, oh, he's better now, because Mage's Blessing is here, and Mage's Blessing makes his clear not horrendous, and Warrior's Blessing is basically like Vanguard, but with what's it called? Glad Shield. And yeah, extra cool stuff. Level 1 clear is important and stuff. But then you can also make the argument, but he's worse now because it's a burst meta. And although you have burst for a Guardian, in comparison to like a mage or an assassin, you have nothing, and you'll just get bursted before you can even do the burst because you're either building bruiser or full damage. If you're building bruiser, you don't have as much burst as these other gods, but if you're building damage, you have no survivability, and you're fat, so you're slow, so you get bursted. I don't know, dude. He's a confusing little boy, and I'll put him in A minus up until I get a good feel on him. I think that he has potential in dual lane now because of the early clear and whatnot, but I don't know. We'll have to see on Cabrakan. A god that I see coming pretty heavily in this meta is Camazotz and the jungle clear that he provides, because let's be real here, Camazotz has great jungle clear, great jungle sustain. He's just that jungle farmy kind of character. He's got the early game just to like punish anyone. He's got decent burst, as well as the ultimate making free damage basically, because you can't hit him while he's in the air unless you got a tick going on him. So you've got free damage basically, and it's kind of fire in that sense, to be able to do that sort of stuff. I think he's going to be pretty strong, and because of that, I'll put him at A+. plus. Next up is Kerberos. I don't know, dude. Kerberos is so interesting. Because he was supposed to be a warrior, but now he's a guardian that does what basically a warrior does. I think he's going to be pretty strong. I don't know. In my opinion, he's A+. plus. He's kind of awkward, but at the same time, if you execute the combo correctly, you're doing not a lot. You're doing a lot of damage for one. You got 60 penetration on that too, plus like a 30% slow if you get all the ticks going. You have you have so much damage on the one. I don't even remember the total damage. You have a lot of damage on the one, plus a 2.2-second stun. That's the second longest stun in the game, besides Ymir's and of course Chonga's if you stack up all 5 players and blah, blah, blah. But other than that, I think it's one of the longest stuns in the game, and that's really potent. Although of course it is situational, but it does do a lot of damage. His 3 is great source of sustain, especially since now that Death Toll's gone, he has less sustain to compete with, so that sustain is more valued because of it. He pretty handily counters most sustain options as well, like Stone of Gaia. He's always going to be healing with that. So if you build in a Stone of Gaia into him, he's going to be healing off that. If you're playing like maybe a Kukulin or some Wukong, you might be building into Glad Shield. He also heals off that. If you're building Warrior's Blessing, which he might even himself, he'll get a lot of healing through that. I think he's pretty strong. His ult, in my opinion, is kind of weak in comparison to something like a Jing Chen or an Ares. But damage he provides for the tankiness he has, I think he's got like he's Kabrakan, but he's got sustain. That's the way I see it. Uh, yeah, and that's why I'll put Cerberus there. Kurnanos. Dude, Kurnanos is on. He's here. He's there. He's everywhere. Um, he's got that ult. That's cool. He's got that Bramble Blast early game, so that helps him with his early pressure. It's not the best early pressure ability, but if you do root them, you're kind of doing a good amount of damage. So I might even see him in A+. But would I pick him over and on her? I have like, it depends on if my ADC player likes him or on her more, to be honest. On her is strong, but he's strong. Cardenos with his 1 has less of a reliance on items, and thus that means that you can do more like interesting builds with him. You could like not even go into Devos and go straight into crit. That might be a thing. Doubt it, but if you wanted to. There's a lot of things you can do with Kronos, and I think that once people start to realize that on a new map, with new items, he'll be better. But right now, as it stands, he's got mediocre everything, except for that first ability, which might put him over the edge and make him a little bit above mediocre, but right now he's like average. Next is Chalk. Chalk is underrated in my opinion, my man. My man's got like a 30% or something ridiculous, some percentage on his Rain Dance that just reduces attack speed by that much. And since hunters are building less attack speed, I mean, this will be short term. I'm sure Hyros is going to nerf crit because of the public outcry. The fact that you're getting less attack speed on hunters means that if you throw that 3 out on your axe and it's like basically covering an entire lane, it's going to affect the hunter a lot, and it's going to hurt them a lot because they have little to no attack speed at that point. And that means they're critting. The fact that attack speed and crit technically go hand in hand. The more attack speed you have, technically the more crit chance you have. However, crit chance alone is more than enough. You don't need to build into attack speed and crit. You can just have crit, and that's all you need. But if you have attack speed and crit, it's optimal. That's why you see attack speed hunters doing more with crit than ability-based hunters. Anyway, tangent aside, if you don't have the attack speed to get your second crit off, you're going to do a lot less DPS. And in comparison to the hunter that has Chalk on his team, you're going to have a harder time boxing in that scenario, which is interesting. He might be coming into the dual lane, not as a support, but just as like a god that's there in the dual lane to do support-y things, but not like support because he has little to no CC outside of his ultimate. But I think he can see a resurgence. He now definitely has a place late game where he used to not, and that might just bring him over because his early game is always going to be chalk early game. You know? Next up is Chang'e. Interesting god to say the least. I think she's pretty good. Um, I don't know. She's got jungle potential, she got mid potential, she got solo potential. It's the question is where will she excel at? Because right now she's like at all those roles, like she can do it, but she's not the best at it. So why would you pick her over the best at it? You know. The thing about Chang'e though is that her bunny is pretty underrated, and allows her to just if she's in the jungle, for example, she's got a lot of farm for free, which means that you can get a lot of farm and not back to base, and that's pretty intriguing. I think that might be what makes her better than some other junglers. We'll have to see though, because like if you build dual morph, I could see it. Like you do morph around the place with like good amount of movement speed and power, and just insta clear things, and you're just getting so much farm from mid to late game where you shine as Chang'e. But you always have to keep in mind that anti-heal has been buffed, and that hurts all healing characters a bit. I think it hurts Chang'e the least. She never was defined by your healing, but I think that it does have an impact on her. Especially since you can't cleanse it with your 2. Although you can cleanse a lot of things right now, including burst, which is pretty important. If you just dodge an entire burst combo as Chang'e, that's really beneficial for you as a player. Chiron. People are putting him in all sorts of tiers right now. I like Chiron. I think he's strong. But people say he's not strong. Why would you ever say he's strong? Because everyone's playing him in middle or ADC. He's not a mid laner. He's not an ADC, guys. Come on, open your eyes. He's a jungler. Guys, come on. Hello? It's obvious right there. The circle is just big enough to hit all the jungle camps. His 1 now procs his 2, so you can make the jungle clear faster. And he's got a relatively high movement speed to gank. It's all right there. But on a serious note, I think he actually does perform well in the jungle. I don't know though, because I've never seen it done besides me, so that's just pretty poor anecdotal evidence. I would need like real numbers, real statistics to see if Chiron jungle actually works. Until then, I'll just put him in A tier. I think he's okay. He's Billy based. I would rather have an on her over a Chiron any day of the week, but Chiron still serves his purpose, and I think that although on the lower end, he's still a god that is in A tier. Next up is Kronos. Kronos is a god that is a mage. He's got the new rings, so he can work better in ADC, maybe? He shreds towers like usual. I mean, except he shreds them more, because why not? Hyros forgot to give towers protections or something. Whatever. Kronos just shreds those things, those bad boys up. Damage-wise, he's good. He's always going to be good. I don't know. It's just that now that it's burst meta, it's harder to get that ult off safely. Because, like, okay, so say you're playing Kronos against Giannis and Bastet, right? Okay. So you're Kronos, right? And then Bastet just drops her kit, and you're like, oh, damn. I guess I need to beepity boppity out of here, right? Except that Giannis forgot, oh, let me just press 2 and do half your health, and now you're gone because you can't even ult. You're just dead. It's just like, it's unfortunate in that sense. And that might hurt Kronos, like you just get bursted before you can even get through your ult. But, like, at the same time, if you are to get through your ult, you just mitigated all that burst. And that might be really potent. It all depends, really. We'll have to see if Kronos is as average as I'm predicting him. But I think he'll be about as average as I'm predicting. You know who won't be average? Cucullin. You know why? Because it's Cucullin. What did they nerf about him? Like, his HP 5 or something? Minute. Oh, and his ult cooldown. That's actually, like, decently effective. But that doesn't stop his main point, which is his lane pressure is stupid. Like, you can build Glad Shield. You can build the Warrior Blessing. You got so much healing off that. That alone is stupid, right? Your bully potential there, dumb. Not to mention that your 1 does a decent amount of damage and, like, stuns minions. That's 2-second stun on minions. That's 2 seconds that your minions are beating down on theirs that they just don't do anything. You can do a lot of things with that. Not to mention his 1 also has anti-heal for some reason. It's so many things on just his one alone. Not to mention the fact that his one in the rage form as a root, you know, not even that part is mentioned. He's pretty safe because of his rage. He's got no mana problems early. I feel like it's an underlying issue with early game now is that if you have mana problems, you are less likely to be not hurt, you know. But Kokolin, he functions off rage and just has no mana problems. It's hilarious. It's kind of stupid too, but hey, that's just my opinion. I think Kokolin needs a bit of a nerf, but maybe I'm wrong. Excuse me. Cupid is next. Don't know, bro. Don't know what he does better than any other hunter on this list currently. His he's got, what does he have over like an Honor or like a Kernanos? Kernanos has a better ultimate in my opinion. Honor has a better early game in my opinion. Like when it comes to stuns being situational, Honors is less at this point because the jungle is just full of walls. It's interesting. I don't know. I think Cupid's kind of bad. Like his early game clear is suboptimal to say the least. He's got the only thing he's got over any other hunter in this game is a heal for his support. So if your support gets poked at, he can heal them. Other than that, he's the squishiest hunter, I think. I'm pretty sure he's got the lowest health pool in the hunter side of things, which is gonna hurt him in a burst meta. Cupid, I think, might need a little bit of buff, but we'll see. Some people say he's really strong. Daji, I don't know, dude. Daji's pretty good with that burst. She kind of can't miss half her abilities. That helps. I think she's A+. Hear me out. So, your level 1's okay. Okay, like, you know, you do your slash, you get your speed buff, you go on to your camps, right? Once you get to that, like, level 7, once you have, like, Hydras, and then you get your jungle, blessing proc, so you have Pen now, and you have your ultimate, you're going to be doing a good amount of damage, in my opinion. Once you have the Hydras in particular, you just leap in basic, 1 basic, 2. You don't even need a basic from there. Because 2 is like, you do some damage and then get out, because it gives you movement speed. That's pretty potent on its own. Not to mention the ult allows you to just pull them back to you, so like you can disengage and then re-engage from a distance. That's a nice burst, but I think her 3-1 combo alone is just a lot of burst with Heartseeker and Heartseeker Hydras, and the 10 pen from Assassin's Blessing. You're just chunking mages all day long, and you can't even miss your 3. And you can barely miss your 1. It's nearly impossible. It's haste effect, dude. Like, it's hard to miss. But I think Daji is really potent. She does what Wheelish wants to do early game, but she doesn't do it as well as Bastet. However, in my opinion, she does scale better than Bastet late game because of her ultimate. You know, it's all sorts of like mathematical mumbo jumbo. It's just Bastet's level 1 jungle clear is so much better than Daji's that have to give the edge to Bastet. I completely forgot Crusher is an item you can build too on both these gods. I don't know if Crusher's good or bad, but it's an item that acts like Bluestone. They like Bluestone. Crusher might be okay on them. Crusher is an item, but, you know, whatever. Next is Discordia, S- god. She's really strong. Do I need to explain it? Yes? Okay, well, press 2, and you'll find out. If you hit 2 or more gods with your second ability, you'll know exactly why she's strong. Not to mention her apple, you know, kind of disrupts an entire team. You have to spread out, so if it's under the support, you are less likely to get the aura effect. I think it's wide enough so that you don't get the aura effect at that point. If it's on a damage dealer, well, say goodbye to your damage dealer, because it's buku damage, you know? Discordia is just really strong with the burst she has. Erlong is in a similar issue with Bologna, in the sense that he has no Destal, but he's got Hunter's Blessing, and I think that's pretty strong on him. I don't remember. Does Hunter's Blessing proc on the dog? I think it does. And that might make him decent. What else was there about him that needed to be mentioned? You can play him in jungle. That's cool. I think he was an A+ before, and he's gonna stay an A+. I don't think he's gonna move too much. Fafnir. Fafnir is a god that people love. People think he's so broken. I think he's okay. I think he's S-. I think that Geb does better than Fafnir. I think Geb is better than Fafnir in the current meta. I think Fafnir is overrated. His his hammer sure is gonna have a AoE slow, but like so many gods have an AoE slow. It's not like that's not a great argument. His 2 is what people look at, and that got nerfed recently. It's a 30% now at max. His level 1 clear is abysmal. In my opinion, it's worse than Ares because you don't have that pressure that comes along with playing Ares. You got Fafnir pressure. You got, oh, I get hammer stun. I mean, that's pretty potent. Level 1, you can, if you hammer stun your ADC, you can get some basics in. But if the enemy support say body blocks your hammer when clearing, they just instantly out clear you unless you have a high clear ADC, which means that you have to build a comp around Fafnir. But at the same time, it's Fafnir, and Fafnir is really strong because it's Fafnir. So it's like in my opinion, overrated, but at the same time, he's really strong. We'll have to see where it goes from there. But I think Fafnir is overrated, but he's still strong. Fenrir, god that exists. Remember when Adapting played Fenrir and then forgot how to play the game or something and just fed? That's basically Fenrir, but in every game. Except not feeding, because I mean, Fenrir, he can like play jungle decently, and he can also, I mean, that's about it. He can try to play solo or try to play support. He might be a kill lane support player actually. He might come back in that role. I've seen like a 0 Fenrir so far, but he might come back. We'll see. We'll have to see. We'll have to see. But bruiser builds aren't as good, and therefore Fenrir isn't as good. That's always going to be a thing. Burst is more thing. I mean, Fenrir can burst, but his brutalize is like 0.5 seconds, so like 2-second long. So burst over 2-second period. If an enemy just turns around, if a mage say like, I don't know, say you're brutalizing an Anubis, for example, a pretty easy target to kill. If he just turns around and presses 3, 1, you're just dead, and he healed up back to full. It's like, what are you gonna do as Anubis to counter the burst? Like, you had to build Bruiser back in the day, and now since Bruiser is not as beneficial, it's like it hurts you as a Fenrir player. Because of that, I think he's only gonna be an A tier, nothing higher. Freya, I don't know. I think the rings buff is gonna be pretty impactful. Not that impactful. Whoops. I think the rings buff is gonna be pretty impactful. The lifesteal buffs are gonna be pretty interesting on her. Just all around, the god is, in my opinion, pretty strong with Hunter's Blessing. Not because of course you can't proc it on all of the wave with your pulse, but you can proc it on the first minion. And it also gives you attack speed, so Freya always scales well off attack speed, so it'll be interesting. I don't know how to. We'll see what Freya goes through. I think she's gonna be okay until like some pro picks her up once and does really well with her, and everyone's gonna be like, "Oh my gosh, she's OP." And we'll have to see. We'll have to see. Ganesh is broken, dude. Ganesh is so broken. He's so strong. People underestimate this man. This man is so good at farming, dude. Like, supports right now are kind of in this situation where they're getting gold sufficiently. Like, they know how to get the gold. They can't get the XP as easily, though. My man Ganesh figured it all out, dude. He can basically cross-map farm, dude. That's an exaggeration, of course. But he is able to farm from so many interesting places. Like, he can do a thing where he can clear wave and then rotate to like the jungler doing the red buff, but not even all the way. He can just rotate to his purple buff with his ADC while the jungler is doing red buff and get the XP from the red buff as well as the purple buff as well as the wave that he just cleared. It's potent. His passive is strong. Not to mention the fact that in a burst meta, having a 1.8 second silence to completely stop any and all burst, it's better than a gap shield. Let's be real. You can't even get the damage out to begin with. And those channeling abilities like dodgies, what other strong gods have channeling abilities? Yikes, not too many, right? Yeah. But like any of those channeling abilities, Thor's Berserker Barrage, Fenrir's Brutalize. I mean, Fenrir's not the strongest, but Fenrir's Brutalize. What's another like multi pew pew ability? I'm trying to think here. And we'll just stick with those, but like if more examples come up, it's like it's there, dude. And also he can be both backline and frontline support, which makes him really just like just an all-rounder character. and that's strong. His level 1 wave clear is really strong. His 1 is so good. If you have like a decent clearing ADC, just pop that one, and there the ADC pops their ability. It just, since the damage boosts on everything, including I think Mage's Blessing. I might be wrong, but I think it also procs the Mage's Blessing. If you have a Hunter with Mage's Blessing as Ganesh, it's just, you're doing 10% more damage times 2. It's kind of, it's busted, dude. I think Ganesh is really strong, and people will understand sooner or later that he's really strong. We might move Artia down, actually. Now that I'm thinking about it, she's a little bit overrated, which is my bad. Gab is, I said that Ganesh's silence does more than Gab's shield. I'm sticking by that claim, but it's still Gab shield. It's still Gab shield, and Gab does the thing where he does the Cataclysm, and what that does is it makes the entire team fight go on a complete 180 and say like, hey man, you know how you were winning for like a good second or something? Well, I'm playing Gab backline support here. I'm in the front line, and I decided all of you stop moving for 1.8 seconds. And if you don't like it, well, that's unfortunate because I have a knockup that'll keep you not moving for another 0.5 seconds. That's unfortunate that you really didn't like it that bad. You're building crit, and now you're trying to crit me, except my passive reduces that damage by 75%. So, basically, what you're trying to tell me as I'm here in your face, making sure that you can't do anything to my carries, is that you want to do something to me instead because of that, because you're angry and you want to take your anger out on a rock, but you're already dead because I Cataclysm 2'd you and my team blew you up. I don't think that needs more explanation than that. Gab is just really strong right now. Oops, I put him in the wrong tier. Thing about Gab is his early game's kind of poo-poo, like pretty poo-poo. Once you get past the poo-poo early game, though, great God, love him to death. Guan Yu, this is a god. I don't know where to put him. I think he's gonna be good in jungle. Haven't seen him much though, so I can't like make a proper analysis on that. I think that some of the items that he can currently work with are pretty good. The fact that Assassin's Blessing gives pen right off the bat once you stack it up, pretty good. His clear, pretty good. List goes on of what he's pretty good at, but nothing that he's like amazing at. So like, I don't know. I think Guan Yu is a god that will be in the A tier until further notice, I think. Hachiman is super strong right now. Let's actually, okay, here's what I'll do. We'll do this. We'll make it, I think that's more proper. Hachiman's super strong. I think he's the strongest. Jingwei's there. One of the strongest hunters in the game right now. He scales so well off the crit. The fact that he's cross-map critting you with his 1 is stupid. The fact that his 2 not only does damage to a wave, but also gives him attack speed is stupid. The fact that his horse literally gives him a free dash from one side of the lane to the other side is stupid. The fact that his ult cannot miss is stupid. The fact that he has a stun is stupid. Like, he's just dumb. He's a stupid character that shouldn't be this broken, but he is. And because of it, he'll be in S-. Hades is a god that does god things, but he's kind of bad, so we're gonna put him in A-. He's like Anubis, but bad, or worse, I should say. He does different things than Anubis, but the way that they play is very similar, and because of that, I think Anubis is better because he actually scales off the lifesteal, whereas Hades, it's like a second thing, like a added bonus. So the thing with Hades is what he does is he leaps in, he presses 2, and then he presses 3, and then he presses ult, right? So that's a pretty damaging combo on paper. The issue is once he leaps in, is he dead or alive? That's the question. Like, once he leaps in, there's a high likelihood that if there's a support there, he'll just get locked down, and then the mage will just burst him. If there's a hunter there, he'll be dead in like 5 basics. If there's a hunter there while he's just ulting, he doesn't even have to leap in, he's dead. Just the hunter aspect. I mean, sure, this applies to Anubis as well, but the thing about Anubis is he's at least stunning you with his 2 for a bit. Hades only has a silence and a fear at best. The fear might be what brings Hades back. However, Hades doesn't heal as much off of. He doesn't have the sustained healing, I shall say, that Anubis does. I think Anubis is still weaker. Not weaker than Hades, but still weak in comparison to these other A tier gods. I don't know why I'm talking about Anubis, but Hades is definitely not A tier for sure. Habois. I don't know, dude. Habois, I think has an argument for A plus. There is an argument for A plus because the way that he procs Mage's Blessing. I think that that's not enough of an argument. I think he's still an A tier because there's still a lot of burst assassins like Bastet just roaming around, but his carpet does counter her cats in a certain sense. Like, he can just carpet away from his cats and kind of like burst them down while he's running away. But the thing, most scenarios, what you're going to do is you're fighting an assassin, and the assassin has like an ability and decides, Habois is like 2 feet out of the tower. That 2 feet needs to be punished. And you basically either get punished or you ult and kill them and punish them. So Habois is like a risky character, and that's why he's never going to be like super, super broken unless they make that risk decrease, unless they decrease that risk. Because his ult can be used for damage or escape. If you're lucky, both. But it's one or the other. So either you can go for damage or you can go for an escape. And if you go for one or the other, you're like heavily sacrificing the other. Like, not just like a light, you're heavily sacrificing your escape if you go for damage. You're heavily sacrificing damage if you go for an escape. But I think that Habois does have potential because of the Mage's Blessing and the fact that it's a 1v1 a little bit more of the time, since the jungler is just so focused on farming. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see. Hell's trash, dog. Hell's garbage. Come on now. Let's be real. Let's be real. Emilzy, any support player that plays out, nah, dude. She's garbage. Why would you pick her at all? Like, what? She's got the heal. Okay. I got Curse Stock that's upgraded. Her team now takes 30% more damage. You thought Aphrodite healing a team was bad? You thought Aphrodite healing one player so that 2 players now get affected by 30% increased damage? Talk about 5 players getting affected by 30% increased damage. That's just brutal. Not to mention Divine Rune's greater. What else? What does Hal do better than other supports? Like, what? The cleanse? Gab's got a cleanse, but he's also got a shield on top of that one. What? The heal? I mean, Sylvanas' heal is weaker, but, like, he also just got CC, you know? CC's kind of nice. Hal's got a slow. What else? Not much else. She's got some damage. You know what? Who else has damage? Ares. Ooh, whoa. And it's not a CC heavy meta anymore. Like, now we don't have like 5 guardians on a team. We instead have like 1 or 2. So having CC immunity isn't nearly as like beneficial as it used to be. It's all about that burst, and as Hell, you're a mage, so you get bursted. It's just simple. And because of that, she's bad. Hercules is a god that's average. He does Hercules. He heals. Enough said. Hou Yi is pretty interesting. The bounces in the jungle are really cool. I've yet to see all of them, but as of what I've seen now, they're pretty cool. And I think that gives them a pretty sneaky edge, because you can't quite see it. You can't quite see the ricochet coming until it's a bit too late in the fog. But, like, Hou Yi is spicy. I think that he'll be fun. And he also has an anti-crit passive. How coincidentally good for this meta. Hunbats. Dude, Hunbats is so fun. Hunbats is so funny right now. Like, here's what you do. Here's what you do as Hunbats. You literally go Deathbringer and Hydras and Heartseeker. What you do is you then press 3, teleport in 1 basic, and they're dead. They're actually just gone. Because, like, that's so much burst. Or you can be fancy, blink, ult, basic, they're dead again. Or you could just 2 basic, they're dead. You know, it's just like pretty spicy. All jokes aside, Hunbats is pretty strong. His ult is always going to be clear out, you know, fear the center of the area. His 2, although is pretty predictable and also has a good amount of delay, it's such a large area that what are you going to do about it, you know? But I think Hunbats is going to be strong. We'll have to see if they nerf crit. They probably will. I don't know if he'll fall off too much because of that, but we'll see. Isis. I think Isis is pretty good. I think she's underrated right now, and because of that, I'll put her an A plus. If if there's any issue with that, hit me up, dog. My explanation is she's got great self peel. Like her self peel is one of the best. She gets an assassin jump on her. She presses spirit ball. Okay, that's not enough. She silences her on herself. That's not enough. She just drops her ult on herself. It's like her self peel is really underrated by most. It's really interesting. People always talk about her early clear, which she has a lot of. Don't get me wrong, but her self peel is also there. Like she's got so many ways. All four of her abilities are built in a way that she can peel for herself. And that's pretty strong. Um, Her ult mitigates burst quite heavily. I've already expressed my love for like silences in this current meta, especially since it's more of a mage meta now, and being able that's an interruptible mage ability. Isis one. Anyway, um, being able to interrupt like stuff like that is always helpful. Not to mention that I think it reduces protections. The silence does. Stun ball is always gonna be super potent. It's stun ball. Like, what more do I need to say about it? It's a large AOE stun. Like, hello, that's it's kind of god tier in my opinion. What else do I need to add? Just about the characters in general. I'd like to say that Isis is pretty good. I don't know, her passive's a little lackluster, but other than that, I think she's strong. Izanami, in my opinion, also strong. Uh, Her level, like, early clear is good. She scales well off, I mean, decently well. I don't like crit on Izanami because you have to do the forward backwards to get the full benefit, and if you don't, you're only getting 75% of a crit damage, but versus like Kane's, you're already getting that damage up front. So in my opinion, Kane's is a better build on her, but I haven't done full calcs. I've only done like general, like basic calcs on that. And that's situational, of course. If you do land the full ricochet, I think crit is better, although, you know, you're getting double mitigated. Other than that, Izanami, pretty strong. Her attack speed steroid basically negates everything I've just stated in that argument. Makes her basic speed like normal and also be like 75% attack speed. You know, it's fine. Whatever. Cool. Whatever, Hyros. But anyway, she's strong. Level early game clear is what I'm looking at when I pick her. Giannis is really strong right now. I think he's one of the best mages in the game. His 2 is on a low cooldown, and it's also burst meta. Check. He's got global ult, so he can rotate. Check. What else does he need? Like, that's all you need as a mage right now. He's just checked 2 of the aspects when you only need 1, which is burst. Most mages have burst. So, like, that in turn makes Giannis a really good mage. He's safe, too. That's another thing. Like Isis, he's got a lot of self-peel. In forms of his 3, he can speed himself up and slow down the enemy. His 1, he can banish himself and the enemy, which means he can mitigate a lot of burst in that sense. But he can also banish enemies, which means he can stop burst from even happening. He can also teleport out, which is just, I mean, walking through walls is always nice. Yeah, I think he's really strong right now, not to mention the global ult. Jingwei is also, in my opinion, one of the strongest hunters. Definitely, for sure, because her farm game is on point, dude. Like, her level 1 clear, she's like one of the few gods that I can like dismiss her early game clear because like in the duel lane at least, because that's where it's matters the most. It's like, does it matter though? Because like for every time I backed, she could have backed twice and still had more farm than me. That's how Jingwei passive works. She can back 3 times for every time 1 time I back and miss less farm than me. And that's just really strong in like just 2v2 scenarios because that allows you as a Jingwei player to always optimize your farm. So you can always basically, I don't know what Jingwei players do, but I think what they do is they fly to back camps when they respawn, just clear those out and just get the lane quickly. Like basically your ult is a free farm simulator. It's great. I think Jingwei is great. Not to mention the fact that she scales super well off crit. Like, really well. Surprisingly enough, Jingwei, the goddess that has crit in her second ability, and has a stim specifically built for crit. Scales pretty well off crit. I know. Wild. Never thought of it like that. Kali. We'll put her in, I think she's A tier. Don't tell anyone this, but she can farm pretty efficiently, and because of that, she can do some damage late game. The issue comes when the opponents burst her out. The thing that she had trouble with earlier, like in past seasons, wasn't burst though, it was CC, and there's less of that because it's not as tank meta oriented anymore. It's more of burst meta, which means there's more damage, but not more, what's it called, CC, which she can completely basically mitigate any effects of killing, like fatal damage through her ultimate. So, like, in my opinion, she's pretty strong in that sense. She's just, like, why would you pick her over a burst assassin? That's where she falls short, in my opinion. Like, most burst assassins have what she doesn't have, burst. Khepri is a god that has really strong pros and really glaring weaknesses. It's really interesting with this god. So, some of his strengths include laning phase, really good with auras, and auras tend to be really good right now. His ultimate, just always in a conversation, no matter what you do, you're like, oh, man, Khepri's level 5. Oh, but he got that ultimate. Oh, man, the entire team is level 10. He's level 5. Oh, but he got that ultimate. Yeah, I think it's a little bit overrated, but at the same time, I can see the argument to say that it is basically a 5-second increase on one's lifespan. That's always nice. It's just like, how often are you going to get that ultimate off successfully? Because the burst is so high currently. And the fact that burst from, especially from a hunter, is going to hurt a lot more when you're grabbing, so it's going to be less, it's going to be harder to use that first ability as a CC. As peel, I think I can still see it though. So, his role, it'll be harder for him to like lock people down, but it'll be easier for him to peel. I think that'll be a shift in playstyle, to say the least. Kukulkan. He stacks well, and stacking items are good. Like, Warlocks is pretty good. Book of Thoth is pretty good. Kukulkan can stack well. He's relatively safe. Not as safe as most other mages, but he's got some safety. Yeah, but like, you know, it's still cuckoo. How safe can you really be with the god? So, we'll just keep him in A tier. Kumbhakarn sucks penis and should not be played in any role. He's bad. Like, what do you got on him? He's got his root that's highly telegraphed, highly delayed. He's got his mez, 3 seconds delayed, but also is a mez. So if one light tap on the shoulder and they're no longer mez, it's got the attack speed reduction and slow. That might bring him back. His one is just altogether a flawed ability and should not exist. It doesn't work. So it's a dash that knocks a minion back if you hit a minion to clear. Issues being, it's a dash that you have to clear with. No other Guardian really has that, like, necessity. I mean, some Guardians can do it and will do it for the, like, damage, but Kumba's main clear ability is in his one, and if you don't use that, you lose. It also can be body blocked. It's just brutal for that. If you get body blocked early, you just have no clear. His telegraph CC is always going to be a pain for Kumba players to deal with. And in my opinion, he just has not nearly as much of an impact as some of these other Guardians that we see here. Kuzenbo. A+, dude. Kuzenbo is coming back. Crit is more meta. Burst is more meta. His reflect is more meta. That's what I see, baby. You just reflect all that shit back, dude. It's so great. And I don't know what more to add about Kuzenbo. He's a meme lord. And what more of a meme than for him to be actually good? Unlike this god, Loki. Stop playing him. No. Medusa. Medusa is interesting in the sense that she is a hunter that's ability based, but also can work with attack, like any build. She's like pretty versatile in that front. Her ult's nice. Her clear is great. Mage's Blessing is good on her. I don't know. I think she's still an A tier god at most because, just because, like, how do I describe this without sounding autistic? Um, Medusa, she's versatile, but she doesn't excel at anything. She doesn't excel at being a crit hunter. She doesn't excel at being a ability based hunter, but she does something that the accelerated people don't. Like for example, as an ability based hunter, she can also build a little bit more into base attack based things, and that helps her in the long run. Uh, as a basic attack based hunter, she also has some abilities to like work off of. It's an interesting position to be in as Medusa. I think that um, she's gonna be pretty good. We have yet to see. I have yet to see her like Medusa player. But I think she's pretty good with the new trans buff and everything. We'll have to see though. Mercury, I actually think is strong because I mean her early game clears, it's Merc clear. It's not the best, but Talaria's boots plus the fact that crit is good, pretty spicy because Talaria's gives a lot of power for Mercury in particular because of his passive, but it also gives movement speed, so he's got a lot of rotational power anyway. Um, Crit, Merc without crit is like bread without butter. It's just like they go together. They're not required, but they go really well together. Um, and because of crit being so strong and Talaria's being so good, just all of these factors just make Merc crema de la crop. Naja, like I want to put him in between. I want to put him in between A plus and A. We'll put him in A plus, but just know that he's like very borderline. Naja is interesting, scales well off crit like Mercury, but not as well, I'd say. Doesn't have to rely on it. He's got that ultimate. I think that's pretty strong. His early game clear is strong. I mean, there's like his only weak part is once you engage as him, uh, you best be getting that kill, but it's easy to get that kill because it's burst meta. Yay! Yeah, Najat has things that make him good, and because of that, I'll put him in A plus. Neith. Neith is an ability-based hunter and only does abilities. I mean, like, even on her and Chiron have more basic stacks things. I mean, Neith has her niche, and her global ultimate makes her decent, but I don't know. It's still Neith at the end of the day. Can't go wrong with her, but you can't go right with her. So, yeah. Nemesis is pretty good, I think. In my opinion, her early game clear has always been a meme. It's a little less one. Still relatively weak. Her ultimate, I mean, burst meta is already a thing. You don't really need that ultimate to do that, but if you really want it, like it's there. Boom, bada bing, bada boom. It also helps her counter the burst along with the shield. The shield helps with that. Her 2 is always going to do a lot of damage and slow. All around a decently good character. Nike, I think she might see it come up. I don't know. We'll see. I think that now that her 1 is knock up immune, we might see a little bit more of a Nike. Especially because her ultimate makes her super safe. Her passive just global boosts, globally free stats in general. We'll have to see though. I think she's boring. I don't know. Kit's pretty boring in my opinion, but hey, that's just me. And maybe because it's so simplistic, I'd say that makes her pretty good. Don't know. Nox, I don't know, dude. Nox is weird for me because on the one hand, her burst is fantastic, right? It's one of the best. But on the other hand, her clear is like, I mean, it's okay. We'll give her an A tier. We'll give her an A tier for sure. We might move her up. Nox has, but the thing Nox does have though is the damage reduction on her ultimate, and I might put her in A plus because of that. That damage reduction, sweet, reducing the outgoing damage by 25%. That's potent AF, like really strong. Cannot be underrated. Not to mention the silence, always good to have a silence in general as a god. Any type of god with a silence is pretty good. I like them. Nuwa. I think Nuwa is good. Why do I say this, you might ask? Well, her self peel is pretty good. She can just drop her minions on herself. She can fog out. Not the best, of course, but could be worse. Um, her ability to impact other areas, although early game is relatively weak because of the ultimate, she still has an impact with that ultimate, and it cannot be denied that that impact exists. It's just like not there as much early game as it is late game, which matters less late game. But her passive is pretty strong in like a 1v1 boxing scenario. Like that route is not that bad. Not to mention that her burst just in general is pretty like solid all around, and bursting is pretty easy now. She can reach high numbers with the Shining Metal. It's just that her combo has always been situational, and I might bring her down because of it. She's borderline A plus. I put all the borderlines a little bit up. For example, Najah and Nox. I put all of them a little bit higher end of the borderline. Just I don't know. I kind of want to be optimistic for these, man. Like I have never seen New Wall above A tier ever, and this is the first time. And maybe she has a chance. Maybe she has a shot. We'll hope and see. Odin. Um, I don't know, man. Odin on the one hand is like he's got the burst, so burst meta boom boom boom, right? But on the other hand, the way he the way he bursts makes him prime target for getting bursted because it's a leap in with a shield. So you would think, okay, so the leap helps get away from like run away from any sort of like combo, and his shield helps mitigate any of that combo. But if he wants to be a part of burst meta, he's got to use that as the opposite of what they're supposed to do. Which on the one hand hurts him, but on the other hand is interesting, right? Because his level 1 clear for jungle is not even bad. It's pretty good. His ultimate, I don't know how impactful it'll be now. Um, but I can see it, definitely. I mean, the fog, although not too impactful, still like, you can like kind of ambush with the fog. We'll have to see about him. We'll have to see about him. I'm intrigued by Odin. Osiris. He was probably the basic attack warrior that got hit the least hard by the death toll removal. He still does bullying pretty quite nicely. The way that he bullies in lane is quite intriguing. Like his bully potential. Let's move these down again. I don't know. I've been kind of on the fence on where to put them. They're like, I don't know, they're high end S minus, but low end S. I mean, I have been giving the benefit for most of these gods, but I feel like I might be overrating them a bit too much. We'll keep him at S minus for now. Anyway, Osiris, God himself, he's got built-in mitigation, so that's strong. He was the one that was hurt the least, because like, although he scaled incredibly well off Death Toll, he still had like the super like pokey abilities, like the way that he poked out. It's just that Death Toll helped him poke without taking too much damage. But a thing to consider is the fact that minions do less damage to begin with, so Death Toll is less required, which is interesting to think about. I don't know. He was definitely affected the least hard out of these trio of warriors, for sure, because he already had the built-in mitigation, so the Death Toll was just a little icing on top of the cake. Yeah, I think that he's really great at boxing. He's one of the best boxing warriors in the game. His early game's phenomenal. His late game just transitions into like being able to face tank almost anything. What more to say? Poseidon. Interesting utility mage with burst. Very cool, intriguing concept. Has a good amount of self-peel, like Isis. Except the only difference is his build path is a little weirder, in the sense that he can't free build. Like, he's kind of obliged to build into Gem of Iso if he wants to make a super impactful. He's kind of like, but like, I mean, Gem isn't that, it's not a bad item by any means. No, don't get me wrong. It's just like, you could build other items, for example, maybe like I mean, I don't know. The gem is just there. Like, it's not really a negative for him, it's just like there. But the reason I'd pick Isis over Poseidon is that Isis ult is more impactful, in my opinion. And Isis is more consistent with her like lockdown. Because whereas with Poseidon you have to get an entire item to make the lockdown worthwhile. With Isis her silence already slows. Her stun ball, already stuns. There's nothing no item that is needed to accentuate this. It's just there off the gate, and I think her clear is better than Poseidon's level 1. So that's why Poseidon's a little bit worse than Isis in that sense. But I think Poseidon's still a pretty strong character. Higher end of A for sure. There, that is for sure. If each tier was a spectrum, there's definitely like tiers within the tiers, but that's a bit too deep. Raw, like a lot of healers, he's been kind of touched negatively. He does have the like pokey poke. His lane clear is phenomenal. I don't know. I feel like he might be A+, but I haven't seen enough just like in general to put a great grasp on Raw. I haven't seen enough Raw. But I think he could be pretty strong. A mage that is really strong is Rajin. Rajin, he got like a 15 damage decrease, base damage decrease on his 1. And I don't remember the 2 change. Some people say it's super impactful. I don't. It's Rajin, dog. Rajin could be up here, actually. I think Rajin's still up here. Rajin's ult still does, like, way too much damage. Rajin's 1 still does way too much damage. Rajin's 2 still does way too much damage. Rajin's abilities clear way too well. Rajin's 3 allows him to be super safe. Rajin's ult is so versatile that, like, it's a CC ability, but it's also a damage ability. It's a peel ability, but also a setup ability. It's just everything. It's obnoxious, to be honest. The only thing that downside is that he loses mobility for all this. But, like, if you have a team protecting you correctly, you don't even need it because you're cross-map sniping with your taunt. And they're kind of sitting, the opponent's kind of sitting there like, whoa, well, that's cool. Or you're just one-shotting everyone in the general area. It's like, that's cool too. Rajin is still a bit too strong. That's just my opinion, though. Rom. Rom. I think he's pretty good. He's got the pew-pew. And that's it. That's literally, he's as basic attack based as you can get on a hunter. But the cool thing about that is he scales well off crit. He just scales well off any build, to be quite honest with you. And because of that, he's always going to be at least A tier or higher. And turns out, right now, he's a bit higher. His clear's always okay. His boxing is always good. He's just good or okay. And that means he excels at being above average, which is what Rom does best. Ratatosker. Well, Ratatasker's interesting because on the one hand, he can't access Talaria's boots. But on the other hand, he's got a global ultimate. So, we'll put him in A+ until further notice. His burst is always going to be there. He's got a global ultimate, like I stated before. But he can't buy Talaria's boots. That might impact him. We'll have to see. I don't know. I doubt it, but it might. It just might. You never know with Smite. Wow, that's rhymed. I'm so cool. Robin. The Robin. I think he's still pretty good. But in the jungle role, of course, in solo, he's always been like, eh. But in the jungle, he's pretty strong always. He's basically an assassin. We'll just call him a bulky assassin. His 2 still gives him complete immunity. His ult, mitigation. Robin's always going to be that, like, early game dive assassin. And I think he does what he tries to do really well. Late game, he does fall off a bit more, though, because the mitigation isn't as strong as before. But other than that, I think it's great. Scylla is next, excuse me. Scylla is a god that has a lot of burst. Like a lot of easy AoE, easily confirmable burst, and because of that, I think she's A plus. Her early clear is you know, eh. Her 3 is kind of safe, but it's predictable too. But it's also pretty long range, so it's like a okay escapability. But what it really comes down to is the fact that Crush takes up the entire lane and does all of your health and damage. But other than that, she's a completely balanced character. I think she's relatively on the stronger side because of that Crush and how easy it is to hit and how good just the burst is. Uh, I think that she benefits well off the. I mean, she doesn't benefit too well off the lifesteal, but since she does have a lot of burst, she can benefit if she wanted to. It's the stacking items that are more intrigued about. The stacking in Book of the Dead, making her safer and all that. I think she's gonna be pretty strong. Saket. Saket is a goddess that has crit in her name, and she's pretty strong. That was really bad, but Saket is strong. Her 1 crits, like I stated before. Her 2 is one of the best CCs in the game. Her ult is true damage. Like, I mean, come on. You can't dislike true damage. Her burst is insane. Like, her single target burst on, like, a mid laner or something just does so much damage. And her rotations from camp to camp is really good. So, I think she's pretty strong. Scotty. Scotty, from, like, in comparison to last season, fell. That's my opinion. Because last season, but then she also took a rise. I don't know. Scotty last season was in a 1v1 scenario more than anything, so it was hard to kill the dog. The dog was relatively brutal, so they had to nerf her ice because her ice was also, like, highly stupid. Like, it still is stupid. There is no denying. But it was highly stupid, and that kind of hurt Scotty when she got nerfed. The thing that hurts her now is the fact that there's 2 people in lane, and basically dog dies twice as quickly because of it. That hurts her a lot. She still has her ice in her 1 and her clear, but she does lack the major, like, scale tipping ability because of the support being in the lane, and that's quite interesting to see. And because of that, I think she's only going to be in the A tier. I don't know. She might be higher. We'll have to see. Sobek. He's a god that plucks and fucks. It's just that simple. Like, once you get plucked by Sobek, like, what are you going to do? To be quite honest. Excuse me, I had to cough again. There's not much you can do. Once you get plucked by Sobek, you just really got to accept your fate. As most mages. A really good setup for burst. That's the thing about Sobek. His setup is so sublime. Not to mention his peel and disruption with his second ability. Great. Self-heal on his third. Great. He lacks a little bit of early clear, but other than that, his pressure in lane, like Ares, is similar. He lacks clear. He has more clear than Ares. He lacks the clear, but has the pressure, though. He might even have more pressure than Ares, just because of the pluck is so brutal. If you get plucked under tower, like, if you push him under tower, it's not safe, because tower does more damage now. So, plucking and fucking is more fucking. Intriguing, right? Next up is Soul. I don't know where to put her. I think she's, like, on the verge, except a little bit lower end verge. We'll put her in A tier. She's the most ability-based basic attack hunter, or most ability-based basic attack mage, if that makes sense. Like, her abilities do the most. She's got a damaging ultimate. She's got a 2, and she's got that 3 that gives her everything immunity. That might bring her up, actually, but we'll have to see. I think Soul's strong, especially because she can shred towers. That's really good, although tower shredding is not impressive anymore, because towers have like two protections and just die immediately. They just fall over and die, and that's just unfortunate for towers. But I think that Soul can make very good use out of what she was given, and because of that, she'll be an A+ god. Sun Wukong. Bluestone being removed probably hurt him the most out of any god. Sure, you can build Mage's Blessing, but I think Bluestone did a little bit more damage and helped us clear a little bit more. It's just a little bit unfortunate for Sun Wukong. He really liked that item for bullying purposes. Now he only has Mage's Blessing. But I think he's still pretty good. He still has his niche, which is like a bully, a safe bully. Like he's like Chalk in that sense. Like being basically, it's hard to mess up Wukong. It's harder to mess up Wukong than Chalk in my opinion. So he's always gonna be that god, safe, just like decent all around, clear. Everything is just safe about him. Next up is Susano. Oh, don't know where to put him exactly. Like I can see him being an A plus god. I could see that argument, but his early camp clear is not the best, and that might hurt him a bit. I think he's underrated, maybe. Or maybe he's overrated. I don't know. He's a bursty assassin that has a lot of mobility. Because of that, I think I'll put him in A plus. He's pretty strong in that sense, especially mobility being his prime asset. He can also set up kills pretty nicely with his abilities. Kills are just relatively easy for him to get altogether, so yeah, I think I'll put him in A plus. Next up is Sylvanas, Keeper of the Wild. I'm putting him in A plus because I think he's good. He's got early lane pressure. He's got the heal. He's got a good amount of CC. His ultimate's pretty impactful late game. All around a good character. He's good in the 2v2 scenarios as well, with his heal and his ability to outclear the opponents usually. So yeah, I'll big thumbs up for Sylvanas. Terra. I don't know, dude. Terra needs a buff. I think she's low end of A for sure. Very low end. She's almost A minus. I'll put her in A minus because, because she's got that ultimate though. Like she's got a pretty coolio ultimate. Not to mention, her passive makes her immune to an entire CC type. So we'll just keep those in mind. If they buff the 2, 3, specifically the 1, I think the 1's the one that needs the buff. If they buff the 1, I think she'll be a good god, but until then, she's going to be alright at best. Thanatos. Thanatos is a god. I think he's A+. Early game is fantastic. Execute, always going to be great. Late game, a little unnecessary. It's more for the setup now and escape. But, hey, Thanatos does pretty good. He does better in tank meta, but he also does well in burst meta because of his one early game doing like half your health. Thanatos is a big thumbs up for me. Morgan, also a pretty big thumbs up. I like the god. I think she's good in this meta. If I could put her in the A+ tier, that'd be great. She's literally all these other gods. She could be the worst god in the game. She could be the best god in the game. Or she could be Morgan. All of them are good. So, we'll just put her in A+ tier. And we'll see how things progress. Of course, this is a very unstable tier list, you can say. Because it's very early in the season. It's very hard to tell. Thor, another global ultimate god. I think he'll be an A+. His early game clear is great. Once again, his burst is nice with his 1. Double tap is spicy. We might not see as much of him as like a rat or like Mercury or Hoonbass, but I think we'll still see a good amount of him. We didn't see any of him in Super Regionals, which was super interesting. I thought we'd see Adapting pick it up, but of course Adapting had to pick up the fan rare, but hey, whatever, man. Thoth. Yo, bring him back to Thothbug. It'll make him OP again. He's okay. His lane clear is, mediocre. Early game especially, it's kind of struggling. But it can be good, and that's important. He scales well off of Book of Thoth in particular. Book of Thoth plus Book of the Dead, that age-old combo. And by age-old, I mean Season 5 old combo. And, yeah. We'll have to see on Thoth. I think he might rise, but right now, I don't know. I don't see potential in him. Tyr. Tyr got buffed recently. Don't know. They kind of, like, gave him healing on his 2 with scaling. But, like, his power stance is not there, so he doesn't even get the passive power to help him heal. So he has to have the external power, which means that he either just gets about as much of a heal as he did before, or he gets to build more power, which means his heal isn't even as impactful because he'll be dying quicker because he has less protections. It's really weird. It's unfortunate that it turned out that way. But I think Tier has his niche in the fact that he does have two abilities, level 1, and Stance Switchers with Mage's Blessing are kind of the jam right now. So we'll have to see what rolls up with him. Uller, I don't. They must have forgot. Like, they must have. Because, like, he was one of the best gods Season 5. They must have thought it would be like AMC where it's, like, only the best because of the meta. But Uller, like, he's similar to AMC in that sense, but he doesn't, like, get completely demolished. He only gets... I mean, you could say he got completely demolished if he's in the 2v2. But it's also, then again, it's burst meta, where it's like, if you land one ability that has CC, the rest is history. So, I mean, I don't know. I think Uller does a little bit better in that sense than AMC. I think Uller really kept the, despite being a very 1v1 focused god, he also kept the ability to, like, be in a dual lane. So, I think he's, in that sense, S minus. Vomit, Vamon's, I love the man, dude. He's one of my favorite warriors, but he's kind of, hefted. Cursed Donk recently got changed to basically the point where you're healing less than you're taking damage in Vomit ult, and that's brutal. Not to mention that, like, he's got the lane clear, but, like, what else, Like, he's got the lane pressure. He's basically, like, a chalk at this point. I mean, sure, he's got the CC and stuff on his abilities, like his 1 has a knockup and his 3 has a slow and attack speed slow. But, like, Chalks affects a larger areas than he does. Chalk has a knockup in his ultimate, and his 3, he's got a slow and a heal. That's easier. I think Chalk is just, like, a little bit better than Vomit in every sense of the word. Like, Chalk is better than Vomit. I think that Vomit's weak right now, and hopefully he'll get buffed. Vulcan, I don't know. Vulcan's so interesting, because I think he's A+. I'll put him in A+, because I'm optimistic, and I'll put him in A+, because I think that he capitalizes really well off of Mage's Blessing. Despite his turret not proccing it, his 1 and 3 are on low cooldowns, so he's always poking. His early game clear, although not the best, is helped out by Mage's Blessing. His ability to team fight is always there, and his burst is just stupid. Like, his 3-1 combo is one of the highest damaging combos, unavoidable. If you don't have beads in the game, it's just like... And then his ult on top of that is just, oof, brutal. Shibalonke. I don't know. I think he's definitely worse than AMCF, that's for sure, but, like, not that much worse, I think his ult has merit. His abilities have merit. Just not a lot. He's always going to have that weak clear, and I think that's what's holding it back more than anything, to be honest. The weak clear and the ability to, like, lose lane despite being, like, a bully god. He's supposed to be, like, a pressure god, like Ares, but he's also a hunter, so it's harder to, like, just ignore the wave because you're squishier. I mean, sure, they made it, like, less tanky, but you're still squishy enough that it has an impact early game, so it's hard to bully. Xing Chen. Guardian solos kind of fell off, but I think Xing Chen, just in general, just because he's versatile and is able to do a lot of things at once, I think he's gonna be fine. He'll stay in A+. Ymir, on the other hand, I don't know, man. He's struggling. He can't move. Moving is hard for a icy boy, and because of that, we keep him in A tier. Zeus and yeah, Zeus is no mobility but high burst. I don't know, dude. Don't know where to put him. He's like no mobility. He's literally a Pwash, right, in the sense of mobility. But his burst is so absurd, like a Pwash, It's just like, why would you pick Zeus over Apwash? Let's think, like, right now. His level 1 clear is better. His, like, AoE damage is better. His guaranteed damage is better. His damage is more guaranteed. Uh, he's got a slow. They both have a slow. Nothing new there. It's just that Zeus's kit is more like less stress, or not stress, less risky, and because of that, I think it's better than Apwash's kit. Because Apwash, you have to dump your whole kit, and if you miss one aspect of it, it's over. With Zeus is similar, but you can't miss detonate, so it's like Apwash, you can miss the detonate, but with Zeus you can't. That's important. Not to mention that Zeus's, if Apwash's ult provided corpses, it'd be similar to what Zeus ult does. So, yeah. I think I can agree with myself here. Zhang Kui, another very interesting thing. I think I want Zhang one day. I've said it many times. I want him to rise, dude. This dude is so thick. But it's bursty meta. But he has burst. He can mess around with these fooligans. His 1-2 combo does a lot of damage. His ult is always counterable by Shell, but it's still decent damage. He recently got a change where his book, his book basic doesn't leave despite him using the ability, and that's coolio. I think that the best place that he can be played right now is ADC. This is a joke, by the way. Don't take it seriously. But yeah, he's an interesting god, and I would love to see more of him. Sadly, I doubt I will. That right there is the tier list. Like I said before, this is a very early tier list, and thus is most likely going to change in some way as the season progresses, especially like within the first couple patches, because this is just a test run, and everything is always subject to change. I think this tier list could look completely different in like 3 patches, but I'm going to be making it anyway just to tell you guys where everything lands as we're going into season 5. By the way, season 5 is out. Hope you all are hyped. I certainly am. It's so much fun. I've already played it a lot on PTS, and it's so much fun. It's so much better than season 4. I love it. I hope you guys liked it, and I hope you guys liked this video. Tell me what I could be improving on. Tell me your opinions in the comments down below. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys later.